It is Sunday, January 10th, 2016. This is Real in the Field Goals, the instant reaction show, instantly reacting to the Seattle Seahawks 10-9 victory over the Minnesota Vikings, just as planned. No complications, as Seattle easily wiped Minnesota off the face of the earth, just as I predicted. Daniel, I have a song for Blair Walsh. Do you think I should play it?
I do.
All right, let's see.
And I thought what I felt was simple. And I thought that I don't belong. And now that I am leaving, now I know that I did something wrong. Cause I missed you. Yeah, I missed you.
What do you think?
I have no idea what that song is, but I like it.
You don't know what the song "Stay" by Lisa Loeb is?
No, I do not. But
Oh
now
my
I do.
god!
The words seem to reflect that he missed the field goal.
Yeah, that was his. That was Blair Walsh talking to the field goal, saying, "I missed you."
Mhm.
I'm a little heartbroken that you've never heard of "Stay" by Lisa Loeb before. I'm sure a lot of our listeners will echo my sentiments.
You're heartbroken.
But at least we have some silver lining to finding out that Danny doesn't have any 90s pop culture sense of reference, which is the Seahawks did win. Blair Walsh misses a 27-yard field goal. Danny, did you, like, when Blair Walsh was lining up for the field goal, like, what did you think that something could go wrong, or were you, like, already thinking about the last 20 seconds that would be left on the clock?
No, I was actually I was thinking about what would happen when the Seahawks get the ball back, if because they were going to have to go likely probably 75, 80 yards with 22 seconds left or something like that. So, and I was tweeting for SB Nation during the game, so I think I was putting a tweet together, and the people in Slack, that the other SB Nation social people in Slack, were like, "Oh my god!" And I hadn't even seen what happened, so
Yeah.
it was pretty funny. And then, yeah, can't believe you missed that, but weird shit happens, man. Weird shit happens in the playoffs, and I think it's like I was talking about this a couple times with on the Cigar Thoughts podcast, and then again I talked to Arif and the fellows over at Daily Norseman, and my prediction was a 3-point game, and I thought something weird was going to happen, some crazy shit was going to happen. Sure enough, there we had it.
I mean, this qualifies for sure. The Seahawks. I mean, I felt something could go wrong. I mean, for the whole game, they were talking so much about the field goals that I really didn't want it to come down to Steven Hauschka having to make a field goal.
Right.
I didn't want that in any situation, no matter the distance. Luckily, Hauschka made his extra point and his field goal. Neither one of those seemed like a sure thing, for sure, with the field goal at 46 yards when they weren't even attempting that earlier in the game. But I didn't want it to come down to field goal. And, when you give anybody, even if it's Teddy Bridgewater and like the last ranked passing offense in the NFL, you give them 3 shots to get in field goal range, you're going to, that could end up hurting you. And obviously that's what they ended up doing, is that they stopped them on the first 2 drives. After the Seahawks took the lead with 8:06 left, they stopped them twice, and then they gave it back to them again because, and this is where maybe Marshawn Lynch's absence comes into play. They weren't able to put in the game in the way that Lynch has done many times in his career. And maybe that's because Lynch wouldn't have been ready to go. But Kristen Michael, I mean, I think there were also some questionable play calls on offense, maybe. They weren't doing very good at all on, third down and 3rd and 1, 2nd and 1. I mean, all these kinds of things. Overall, with the fact that that it was freezing temperatures below 0, what did you think of the play calling from the Seahawks?
I didn't have a big problem with the play calling. I think the execution was just really terrible. And number one, Russell Wilson just did not seem like himself. He was throwing high a couple times. He checked into one play, and then the Seahawks fucked it up in terms of I think they just messed up their execution of it, where people were actually supposed to be. And that was the play late in the game when they just needed a 3rd and 1. Russell Wilson checked into a pass play, and then it almost got picked off. To me, it was just a matter of execution, and I think a lot of that goes to obviously the weather. I think the Vikings played really well on defense. and I just don't think Russell Wilson had a very good game. And so that trifecta, I really don't. I mean, there's surely plays in there that you look back and be like, okay, well, that was probably not the smartest thing here and there. But overall, I didn't think I wouldn't put this on Bevel so much as I think the Seahawks just were terrible in their execution of the plays. They ended up with 226 yards of offense, was actually more than the Vikings. The Vikings finished with 183 yards of offense, 3.3 yards per play. The Seahawks were at 4 yards play. It was just an ugly, ugly game on both sides of the football. Defensive battle, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, Adam Schefter, somebody, I don't think that he comes up with these things, but someone in his ESPN stats and info probably tells him that kickers were 189 of 191 on field goals, 27 yards or shorter this season.
Holy shit.
So only 2 misses all year long, and obviously Blair Walsh comes up with one more. It was crazy.
Hashtag team of destiny.
Hashtag team of destiny. Is that your hashtag, or are you starting?
Hashtag. Yeah.
I think obviously that was, I don't know if that's the way you wanted it. Anyone, Seahawks fans wanted it to go, but the NFL playoffs, their only name of the game is surviving. So
right.
However you survive, it also seems like, with Michael Bennett, he came out for what looked like an injury, then came right back, and he seems like he says his knee is fine.
That's good.
Doesn't look like to come out of a game like this without any significant injuries. It seems like that's the case right now. You haven't heard anything else, right?
No, I haven't seen anything else in terms of major injuries. I think Bennett was the only one that I can remember. Yeah, I think that's it. And then obviously next week probably getting Luke Wilson back. And then we'll see about Marshawn Lynch. It's always a fun adventure with him. But again, the Seahawks are kind of going into next week pretty healthy, so that's good.
I mean, and there'll be another same time next week, 10 a.m. Local time on Sunday in Carolina. That matchup doesn't really seem to mean anything for me. I don't have any sort of significant reason to want to see the Seahawks beat the Panthers.
Yeah, you have nothing invested in that. So.
I don't think that you can take too much away from this game in terms of how well they play next week. I mean, it's such a different environment, and the two teams, Seahawks and Panthers, they mirror each other in so many ways with their mobile quarterbacks and their top defenses. The Panthers beat the Seahawks this season 27-23, but this is also a rematch of the divisional game last year. They played each other just last year in the same situation in Seattle, though.
Yeah.
It's their 6th meeting in the last 4 years. The Seahawks won the first 4 of those before the Panthers won this one. Although, even though the environment is different, a 10-9 score probably wouldn't be that surprising, right?
No, I mean, again, I think I'm probably going to be predicting another really ugly grudge match type game. I don't, these teams seem like division rivals to me. So it's kind of like the Rams thing or the Niners type, like the older Niners of a few years ago type matchup where, they match up really well with each other. They're very tough in the trenches, and probably going to be a grinded out, like a big play here or there is probably going to be the difference kind of thing. And that's how it kind of happens in the playoffs. So it's going to be a really good matchup. It's the matchup we all wanted. So that's really fun. And it's just going to be great. It's good. It's going to be good entertainment for sure.
Yeah, I think Russell Wilson, Cam Newton, I mean, that alone is enough for the price of admission. I think it's going to be – I think there's a chance that if the Seahawks – that the winner of this game will – I don't know. It's interesting. But I think the winner of this game is very – even though the Cardinals are really good, you just feel like this is game. This is the game. I just feel like this is the game.
Hashtag team of destiny.
You're going to get that going eventually. Yeah, it's just this is a very important game, but I just think that the Seahawks, they can play as the best team in the NFL, and then as today they've shown, they can make a lot of mistakes. If the Seahawks had lost, what would you have blamed the loss on?
I think the offense, probably. The offense just really did not execute at all. Obviously the weather was a major factor. And that was, clear on both sides. Both teams basically really struggled with the cold, and it affected players' movement and the ability to throw the football. I just think that the Seahawks offense just really did not play very well, and so I think if we ended up having the Seahawks lose in that game, I probably would have looked at the offense and said they just didn't play well enough to win. But at the end, they got lucky.
Yeah, I mean, the performance by Cam Chancellor on that last drive. I mean, on the other hand, he strips the ball away from Adrian Peterson, sets up the Seattle's chance to take the lead. Otherwise, I don't know that they would have ever gotten into that position. Did you think that the pass interference was a pass interference?
No, I don't think so. That was a really ticky-tack call. If anything, I think you probably could have called offensive pass interference on that. The way I understand it is Cam has just as much of a right to a certain spot on the field, especially if he's looking at the football. And the ball was either in the air or close to being in the air, and Cam kind of reacted to that, I think, and then they collided. And the tight end actually pushed off of Cam. I don't know. I think it would have been a good no call personally, but it was a close one. But it kind of looked bad on Cam's part. But when you watch the replay, it kind of looked more like it was the offensive player was initiating the contact and pushing off. So
yeah, it seemed like he ran directly at him.
Yeah, and that's that's the defender has is just as much of a right to a spot on the field, and if the offensive player is initiating contact, that should be offensive pass interference. At most, I think it should have been a no call.
It feels like a crowd call. It feels like a little bit like something happened, and I think sometimes these refs, especially in playoff games, they get a little touchy, and they don't want to be on the side of I didn't make an obvious call if there was contact. Obviously, something had happened that prevented any player from being in position to get the ball. But I think there's sometimes once the boo birds start coming out, you just don't want to be the one that makes the call. And luckily, the refs do not play a part in this game in the way that they did in Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just about the weather did play more of a factor than I thought it would. Russell Wilson's passes seemed very errant in the first half.
Yeah,
then he did seem to get things on track a little bit. A lot of this game centered around Russell Wilson's ability to move. I mean, he was under duress quite a bit, and some of that stuff I think maybe caused by him. But at the same time, that snap by Patrick Lewis that turns into a 35-yard gain to Tyler Lockett. What were your emotions and feelings as that play was unfolding?
Yeah, that play was classic Russell Wilson, making something out of nothing. And I saw the Niners Nation Twitter account actually talking about this, and someone had tweeted at the Niners Nation account, who David Fucillo runs that as far as I know, and they said, someone had said to him, the Seahawks always get so lucky with those plays, and Fuch actually defended Russell Wilson and said, no, I think it's more like he's just really good at keeping his eyes downfield when something like that happens. And when you go back and look at the play, Russell Wilson slid on that thing. To me, it looked like a second baseman fielding like a ground ball up the middle, and it was like he grabbed it. He immediately looked downfield. He eluded the oncoming guy. And that's not luck. That's skill, honestly. And then he eluded the oncoming guy, kept his eyes downfield, saw Lockett, who was wide open, tossed it to him. It ended up being probably the biggest play of the game. And so for me, that's not luck. That's making something out of nothing. And it has a lot to do with Russell Wilson's skill and field vision and just talent in terms of being able to recover that football and then get up and still go with it. That's not luck. So,
right.
I think that was cool to see that Fucillo recognizes that. And, it's not something that, those plays are kind of random, but at the same time, he's made so many of those over the years that,
you take 30,
give him some credit.
Line up the 31 other starting quarterbacks or whatever, put them back there, have the ball flipped over their head, and tell me how many of them even are able to pick up the ball. I don't even think at that point you've already cut out half of them. They would just fall on it. They have no ability whatsoever.
Right.
And then, another half of those remaining guys, just get quickly sacked. I think there's maybe two guys in the NFL that can do that. And maybe, for Russell Wilson to come away with anything. And there were other times too. It was only 2 plays before that it looked like he was going to get sacked, and he picked up a gain of something. It was set up it was like a gain of 5 or something like that he ran out of bounds. And his scrambling ability, plus in the first half, when it looked like they had actually been able to use that zone read option to success better than they have maybe all year long, that there was something going on there. And then obviously that didn't play into a part as so much late in the game when it seemed like they could really we knew that if they could pick up a couple first downs, they would win the game. What did you think of Kristen Michael? Because there was a lot of pressure put on him going into the weekend once it found out that Marshawn Lynch wasn't going to play.
Yeah, especially considering, from what I understand, he didn't get hardly any first-team reps this week. Marshawn Lynch took most of the reps before he decided that he couldn't go. So, again, it's kind of like getting an injury right before the game, and in the fact that you're expecting one guy to be out there, and then you have to all of a sudden go to your backup who has not had as many snaps, has not had as many reps, is not mentally prepared necessarily himself the whole week to be starting. So, I think he did a good job, all those things considered. I think, he obviously looks really explosive at times. I said this before. He's kind of feast or famine a runner. He has a lot of runs that just get kind of blown up for like 1 or 2 yards, but then every once in a while he'll hit this big 12 or 13-yard run, and you can see that explosiveness. There's a couple plays where he was running left where you could really tell that the fact he still can't switch hands is a factor. So that, again, something during the offseason that he'll have to work on. I don't know why he can't do it yet, but it seems to be like a mental block type thing. But but regardless, he looked decent out there. I think considering they got him off the street a couple of weeks ago, you have to be pretty happy with how he's played. He had 70 yards, so that's not terrible.
Do you have any apprehension or does any part of you say that don't give Marshawn Lynch first team reps this week?
There's part of me, yeah. There's definitely part of me that says that, because I don't know. There's just so much going on with the whole Marshawn Lynch thing, and we've seen several beat reporters kind of alluding to it or flat out saying it, like the team did not know that Lynch wasn't going to go until Friday after practice, and they had been planning on it. So in a lot of ways, whether he was actually injured or whether it was something to do with him being mad at the team or whatever, like Irvin said on the NFL Network, you just have to wonder, because there's so much history of Lynch being kind of like at odds with the front office. And so, regardless of what really happened, I don't know how much you can trust him this week. You know what I mean? Like it's just kind of, it gives you pause.
Right.
I don't personally think he's it's tough because I don't see him as a guy who would give up on his teammates. He just doesn't seem like that over the years, but what happened on Friday was really weird. It was
sometimes I think that people have not malicious intent towards their teammates, but I think that they have intentions that may harm people they don't want to harm, but they're not thinking about that. It's not their focus. It's just that's more like collateral damage. And I don't know that necessarily, and I'm not saying that's what Marshawn Lynch is doing. I'm just saying I could see factors where it's like, oh, is Marshawn Lynch a good teammate? Yes. And did he sort of decide not to play? Yes. I could see those both being true.
Well, put yourself in the Seahawks shoes for a second too. Regardless of what actually happened, how much do you think they'll trust him this week?
You want to be careful, because it's like every game now is your most important game of the season. So, Kristen Michael looked good out there on some plays, and how much better could he look if he's used to getting the handoff, being the number one guy?
You have to wonder too. I doubt it was that different. But you have to wonder if the Seahawks game plan and all the plays they install, because you install your offense, you install your game plan early in the week. You pick out a certain X number of plays that you're going to do in this game, and then you practice them all week. You have to wonder, and it's the Seahawks probably were being safe about this, not knowing exactly what was going on with Lynch, so it probably wasn't terribly different. But you have to wonder if they had plays in there for Lynch that maybe fit what Lynch does better. And then when Lynch kind of was scratched late in the week, it was like, well, shit, now we got to run these all with Kristen Michael. Maybe that's a little different. So you have to wonder if there was any of that. I'm guessing it's probably pretty negligible, since I bet when they went in to design the offense for this week that it was with the thought that Lynch might not go. So my guess is it's probably not a big deal, but there might be a little bit of that.
Adrian Peterson this season against the Seahawks rushed for 63 yards on 31 carries, 2 yards per carry. I mean, for a Hall of Fame guy that led the NFL in rushing yards, that's pretty good. In 8 quarters against the Seahawks, the Minnesota Vikings offense scored, 9 points and no touchdowns in 8 quarters against the Seahawks defense. So definitely that
points to the whole game plan. Sorry to interrupt you again.
How dare you?
Game plan, and we talked about it all week. It looked like a good matchup for the Seahawks, and in terms of the defense matching up with that offense, it's absolutely been a great matchup for the Seahawks. That was why I was excited about that draw. The offense just played way worse than I was expecting.
Very true. I mean, the Seahawks, their path to the Super Bowl and possibly their path if they were to win a Super Bowl, it could be all rematches because they've got, they've just taken care of Minnesota. Then they've got Carolina this week. If they happen to beat the Panthers, then you could be looking at Arizona. And then who knows, maybe Pittsburgh sneaks in there to the Super Bowl for a rematch of XL. Anyway, just kind of a curious thing. In the last game against the Panthers, Cam Newton, 20 of 36, 269 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Also rushed 7 times for 30 yards and a touchdown. Jonathan Stewart rushed for 2 touchdowns. Greg Olsen had 7 catches for 131 yards and a touchdown. That was the biggest game of the year for Jimmy Graham. He had 8 catches for 140 yards. They won't have him, obviously. Perhaps they will have Luke Wilson, though. And we'll see about Marshawn Lynch. Ricardo Lockett caught a touchdown in that game. Obviously, he's not going to be around. Marshawn Lynch rushed for a touchdown. So it could be a few different personnel guys, definitely at least a couple in their rematch against the Panthers. But then a lot of the same guys that were there last year for the 31-17 divisional game. I think if anything, it's going to be a good game, a good matchup. For this week's edition of Reel in the Film Goals, Danny, I want to ask you, what's your favorite ice cold movie that takes place in very cold, ice, snowy weather?
The first thing that came to mind was the Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, Hoth.
Yeah, because it opens, in Hoth, and the Tauntauns freeze. We talked about that earlier in the week.
Yeah,
worried about the Tauntauns freezing, but
let me just, point out that if you follow me on Twitter at Kenneth Arthur S, great tweet that, Russell Wilson seen on the sideline opening up a tauntaun. So, follow for more stuff like that. And that's the type of good stuff that you get. My favorite.
Before you go on, I want to reiterate how fucking cold it was. This was one of 3 coldest games of all time in NFL history. Just let that sink in.
Yeah, I think this was escape mode. The Seahawks had to go into escape mode and just
they survived. It was like The Revenant. And I haven't seen that yet, full disclosure, but
I won't spoil anything.
It was like Hugh Glass crawling through hundreds of miles of wilderness with his back all torn up.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Sorry.
No, it's for them to come away and they didn't want. I don't know if you want to necessarily win on another team messing up, but who cares? They did hold them to 9 points, and they did everything that they could, and it was just a ridiculous game. I think Russell Wilson was clearly thrown off by the weather, as were some of the other guys. My favorite ice cold movie, The Thing, taking place in Antarctica. Another horror movie with plenty of gore. Do you know The Thing?
I'm actually not familiar with it.
God, I knew it. Today you've missed The Thing and Lisa Loeb. And I think a lot of our listeners.
How do you expect me to be as up on pop culture as you? That's absurd.
I don't even necessarily think it's up on pop culture. Like Lisa Loeb was probably the number 1 song of 1994.
I've heard of Lisa Loeb. I just didn't recognize it.
Well, I mean, and The Thing, one of the greatest top 10 horror movies of all time, 1980. Kurt Russell, John Carpenter, not James Carpenter. Although, why didn't James Carpenter? His nickname should have been The Thing or something.
That's a good idea. Too late.
But I think, you got to see The Thing, and I think a lot of our listeners will agree on both counts. That closes the door on Reel in the Film Goals, and I think we can close the door on the Minnesota Vikings. getting out of there 10-9 with a win. We open the door on the Carolina Panthers. If there's going to be, I don't know if there's going to be discussions about Cam Newton this week. We'll see. It's just going to be it's going to be an intense week, followed by a game in which I think
batten down the hatches, Kenny.
A loss, I know that I will be flooded
with
certain messages.
That is certain, yes.
A win, I think things will go quiet quite quickly. But I'm confident in Seattle's ability to go toe-to-toe with the Panthers. I don't think that and I still think that they're a better team, though, the situation being what it is, it's going to be the field is even. So
it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a really tough game. This is the number 1 seed, the best team in the NFC most of the year, if not all the year, other than Arizona, But, this is the team that almost went undefeated. This is the team to beat. You got to go through Carolina to get to the Super Bowl. So this is the matchup we all wanted. It's going to be tough.
This is the matchup I wanted. When I was sort of like over the last 5 or 6 days, every time I thought about the Seahawks winning the Vikings game, I wasn't because of them winning the game, but I would just automatically smile because I would think about them playing the Panthers in the playoffs. I think Panthers fans might think that I would not want this to happen. This is what I wanted to happen more than anything.
Yeah, this is why you watch sports. This is what you want. This is in boxing or whatever. This is when the number 1 contender, in my mind, meets up with the champion or whatever. You gotta beat them. So this is fun.
Yeah, the Panthers coming off a bye week, but the Seahawks, at least they come out not too banged up. It seems like they'll just sort of warm up, take a day off, and some would say that having that bye week not necessarily the best thing. The Seahawks, they're amped right now. Yep. You saw the way that they came off that field. They've never felt this good. Doug Baldwin called it the best game he's ever been a part of, or the biggest win. Richard Sherman practically crying on the field. Sometimes those emotions can get to you. It happened with the Packers last year in the NFC Championship. Russell Wilson bawling his eyes out, but yeah, I think there's a good thing about having that rhythm and feeling because I think if you look back, I don't have a bunch of examples, but I think if you look back, you'll see a lot of Super Bowl teams had to win in the playoffs in similar fashion. You look at the 2001 Patriots in their snow game against the Oakland Raiders with the old tuck rule. So we'll see what happens. I think that Seahawks fans can rejoice. They survived. They get to play another game.
That's the other thing is let's remember, winning in the playoffs is fucking hard.
For anyone.
And there is, to me, I don't give a shit about style points. If you get a win in the playoffs, that's huge. Look at the Bengals Pittsburgh game last night. That was the ugliest game ever. You can't. I wouldn't say that the Packer or Steelers fans probably feel real great about that win, but they got the win. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
get the win, you move on. You beat a better seed than you. I'm happy. You got to be happy moving on.
Case in point, Redskins lead 11-0 over the Packers. For those curious, I just missed PAT, but the Packers with Aaron Rodgers, their season of turmoil seems to be going right back down as planned.
Right now it's not looking good for them, obviously.
Yeah. I think if the Redskins win, a Redskins-Cardinals game could be very interesting with the way Washington's playing. But we'll see. Seattle and Carolina next Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific time in Carolina. The Instant Reaction Show will be taking place, same time around 2 p.m. Pacific time. And then we'll have the normal Reel in the Field Goals this week, most likely on Thursday, to preview the Panthers once again and get more deep into those 15-1 Panthers. Will they be going 0-1 in the playoffs? Find out in a week. We want to thank our Patreon folks.
Absolutely.
The people that have donated to keep the show going and to keep it, to make it bigger and better in 2016. We'll include a Patreon link in the post here. This just helps us get better equipment and hosting and being able to just provide a better show. So if you want to throw a couple bucks or whatever, this is a monthly thing, so just keep that in mind. Please do that. And subscribe to the show on iTunes, Real in the Field Goals. Follow us on Twitter at Field Goals and Kenneth Arthur S. Go to fieldgoals.com. 3000 NFL mock draft comes out on Mondays and sometimes Tuesdays. This week, probably Tuesday due to the national championship game being on Monday. And that's it. Danny, any other final words?
No, I mean, again, it's just happy that the ride isn't over yet. During the last part of that game, I was like, well, that sucks. It seems like the season's just about over. But miracle. Then the miracle happened, and it's almost kind of like the feeling you had at the end of the NFC Championship game last year, where you're like, okay, the season's over. That sucks. Like, you're mentally preparing yourself that no more Seahawks football till next August or whatever, and so I feel like we're playing with house money now, so that's pretty fun.
House money, and it's definitely, you start to reconcile the loss. You realize that's not so bad, and then you win, and you realize, hey, next week you probably even have a worse feeling in your gut.
Yeah.
All right, so come back next week for that worst feeling in your gut.